Maker's monthly look at the rural property market is Peter Newbold, GM for Real Estate at PGG Wrightson. And Pete, it's been an interesting month, to say the least, since we last chatted. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Rowena. Yeah, look, there's been a lot on, and when you look at what's happening around the world, and then even just locally, which I won't go there because that would take up all day, but and then what we're facing out on there's been a lot of wet weather and a number of areas which has not only affected real estate but other parts of rural New Zealand. It's been a busy old month.
I think the one thing that is really balancing some of these challenges and starting to lift people's spirits a wee bit is that we are getting more daylight hours in the day. This is the saving grace.
Yeah, it's nice to get a bit of sun on you, isn't it? There's nothing better.
Nothing better indeed. Hey, look, another positive is that we are still seeing continued interest in sheep and beef properties.
Yeah, look, it's still very strong. As I've said previously, there's interest from all sectors. The forestry and carbon piece is still underpinning it all. But we sort of sense that's probably just slowing a little bit. That's sort of our feeling at the moment. And I think the only other thing I would mention to your listeners is that, if you're arguing into that space, you need to get some really good advice because it's quite complicated. And there's been lots of changes over time. So, that's something just to be mindful of. But definitely, people are either traditional landholders are wanting to increase their size. Then you've got, people from, say, your bigger centres that are wanting to get into sheep and beef. And then, of course, you've got the whole forestry carbon piece. So, look, there's a lot of activity in that area. And also, it's in pretty much those sort of strong rural areas like, your King Countries and your Otagos and places like that. So a lot of interest.
What are we seeing in terms of the dairy sector, Peter?
Yeah, well, last year it was reasonable. This year we're seeing more listings, so that's definitely noticeable. And we're seeing, from our perspective, you're seeing the range of properties, tier 1 to 3, but we're seeing a lot of good properties come to the market. And again, for good reasons, again, it's succession or retirement or time for a change. But I think the key thing is we're seeing some good properties come to the market and there is good interest. And so that's really pleasing for everybody. The only caution I'd say is, there are, in some areas, there are probably, some large numbers are coming to the market. But overall, it's looking really positive.
Brilliant. Now that's sheep and beef and dairy covered off. What's happening in the horticulture space?
It's been slow getting into the season. Now we're just starting to see things move on. A lot of it's been affected by weather. It's been very wet in parts. Even some have been affected by, colder temperatures. The season's probably just started a little bit late, and probably we'll see over the next maybe 2 to 6 weeks where values are going to sit. Slow start, but starting to build. And again, we're just starting to see a number of listings come to the market. And if you look at certain areas like kiwi fruit and the like, there's strong demand in that. The interesting piece of where values sit after what some would say have been a challenging month or two in that area.
One thing I remember from when I was farming, Peter, is that you could never get your hands on a grazing block. Everyone wanted them. They were snapped up as soon as they hit the market, sometimes even before. Is that still the case?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting piece, is that, yes, you've got, those who've already got land holdings wanting to increase or on that piece, but then you've also got a lot of other people who are wanting to get a taste of rural New Zealand and are looking to a grazing block maybe to start off to run a few cattle or sheep. And then with the way, I guess, that lifestyle market's moved, there's a number who have decided, look, I'm happy to be 15 k's out of town. I'll have a home on a grazing block and run more stock. So you've got probably another group or another sector coming into the market, which has created a lot more interest from our traditional buyer base, where it was existing farmers wanting to increase their land holding for a number of reasons. So, yeah, look, that's an interesting space, and I have a feeling that's only going to grow, or the interest is going to grow in that area due to the way that whole lifestyle market is expanding around some of those provincial towns.
It makes me sad to hear that because it's a great way for young people to get into the market, and it sounds as though it's just as challenging, if not more so.
Yeah, look, and I think that's one of the things we've got to remember. We want young people to be able to get into the industry. And so let's just hope things settle down and there's opportunities for young to come in, because when you look at some of these properties these days, it's very challenging for a young person to set themselves up and get into this marketplace. So, we don't want to miss out on that group of people moving forward.
Absolutely. Peter Newbold, GM for Real Estate at PGG Wrightson. Appreciate your time on The Country. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, we'll do, Ro.